Well, good evening everybody on YouTube. This is Sparky Mike. Welcome to the Ol'skool Reefer channel. Thought I would give my bit of information being a Sparky / electrician and keeping reef tanks. Large systems generally. Quarter horse chiller or larger. I recommend personally using what we call in the trade as a lighting contactor, also known as a relay, contactor, also called motor contactors. And what they do is they switch on and off large current devices such as a chiller and really large motors. Anything generally, I would recommend 7 amps and up. And it's a lot cheaper than burning up your power strip from like an Apex system, because the power bars are actually only rated at 15 amps total, and unfortunately you plug a 10 amp chiller in there, you tend to fry the relay inside of here for the high power outlet, because it turns on and off so many times that it eventually arcs and trashes the connection in your power bar, and then you have to go buy a $100 power bar or more. So to prevent that, what I do is I use an outlet as a trigger source. It's kind of low amperage, and basically it pulls the coil in on the contactor, and I shall show you that. And I'm going to put you on pause while I pull it open. I have my system here disassembled a little bit so you can see what's going on. Motors of this size, even this large 100, probably 2,000 gallon or less motors, you probably don't need to do that. So I don't recommend doing that with motors smaller than these, or larger, smaller than these. This size or smaller, I should say. Heaters, you can do the same thing with those. If you have more than 500 watts or 600 watts of heaters combined. Again, this is for large systems, 300 gallons or larger. My system's probably 375. I use a half horse chiller. I'm using basically all LED lighting, either handmade or Radions, they're new G5s. Basically it's all LED instead of metal halide. Metal halide is really hot, and so are T5s, so they add a lot of heat to your system. So I'm running, like I said, a half horse chiller, and I also recommend using what they call a flow switch, and that's this guy on the back of here. It's connected to the chiller. Water runs through it. If there's no flow, basically it turns off, turns your chiller off, so you don't freeze the guts inside the chiller and bust the guts and destroy your chiller should your pump fail to run. So if there's no circulation, the chiller doesn't run, doesn't freeze up, bust. So preventative measures, always use a flow switch and use a lighting contactor. I'm going to pause here for a second while I pull this off so you can take a look inside. Okay, now I got the cover off. You can kind of read the cover. I have this, which is the main power supply. It runs all the amperage. I have it running to a dedicated 20 amp outlet that I basically wired into the house a long time ago. Basically 2 dedicated outlets, both of them 20 amps, but I run the chiller on one circuit basically by itself. This is what they call a lighting contactor, relay, whatever you want to call it. The Apex will send us a trigger, low amperage trigger to the coil connections, which pull in and disconnect the coil, basically connecting high power, high amperage. Basically the feed, the load. I have the red one going to my flow switch, from the flow switch to the chiller. The other black goes up to my apex system. It's the trigger wire, low amperage, triggers the coil, pulls in the coil, triggers the relay, and there you go, voila. Basically it's an automated switch, high powered switch, so you don't burn up smaller relays, basically like what would be in that power bar. So that's my tip of the day as an electrician. Use yourself what they call a contactor on quarter horse and larger chillers. Save yourself a lot of headaches along with that flow switch back in there. I guarantee it'll be a whole lot less hassle, a whole lot cheaper when it goes haywire. Anyways, my tip of the day from an Ol'skool reefer and an electrician. Have yourself a good night. I'm sorry I'm not the best at scraping glass, but I generally keep a pretty good system. I've been kind of busy this summer fixing everybody else's broken stuff or rebuilding it, so y'all have a good night. Take care.